Folks, welcome in. Seven Rivers Racing on KQEG TV. I'm Dan Dyker along with Al Losi, coming off another stupendous night of racing at the Crosse Speedway. It's the first time I've used the word stupendous this year. It's that good.
It is. It was really good. Oh, the weather was beautiful, wasn't it?
I could use that for the rest of the race season.
Oh, if it was that way, we'll see the kind of speeds we had. Tim Nelson, after qualifying, came over with this big smile on his face. He says, "That's the fastest I've ever been."
Nelson,
and he's been out there for a long
lap.
Yeah, and we were excited about our lap. And then I went over afterwards and I said, I didn't realize it was that deep into 19. Yeah. Oh, he was still brimming.
We had a total of 7 drivers. That was the first time in the history of the 6for6 at La Crosse. All 6 drivers were in the 19-second range.
Oh, it was, and even didn't make the race in the 19-second range.
Right.
It just goes to show that the drivers out there are really putting their nose to the grindstone and doing everything they can to make those cars faster.
Well, before we replay last week's races like we usually do at the La Crosse Speedway, I do want to pass along a huge benefit that's coming up. And Al and I have talked about how big this racing community is. It's probably one of the best I've ever been a part of when you talk about the drivers and their pit crews and all their fans. And we've got a benefit coming up here at the Home American Legion on September 16th. It's a Sunday. It's from 11 to 8. And it's for sportsman driver and his wife, Jason and Carla Dummer. You remember back in May of 2011, they had triplets, which was kind of a surprise.
Right.
One of their daughters, Sophia Grace, has had intestinal problems. Since then, she's had 13 surgical procedures going back and forth to Milwaukee and then back and forth to La Crosse. Still in the ICU every now and then she comes back home. It's been such a trying time. Well, to help pay for some of their medical expenses and a lot of the travel time, they're going to have a huge benefit, and this thing is huge. I'm on the board for watching what they're doing here, and this thing is probably one of the biggest we're going to see in western Wisconsin. So again, it's sophiasSavingGrace.com. That's the benefit website if you want more information. Again, it's going to be September 16th. It's a Sunday from 11 to 8 at the Home American Legion. I'll be spinning tunes the entire day, going to donate my DJing services. And I know how well this racing community is, and I would expect a couple thousand people to show up.
And as we were talking beforehand, this is a racing family doing something for a family. And some of the activities also includes children's games and things like that. And as we mentioned beforehand, as you mentioned, they would like some of the racers to come out in their racing uniforms, their racing hats, shirts, whatever you have, just to make the racing community family notice there.
To even make it better than that, they're asking race car drivers if they want to bring their cars out. Again, it's a Sunday. No one's doing anything on a Sunday. If you save it from the night before, at the Speedway, even though we're going to be done, partially done by that time before Oktoberfest rolls around, sophiasSavingGrace.com. Or if you're at the La Crosse Speedway, talk to Lance Berger. He pits for Jamie Dummer. Lance is head of this board that they're doing for all the events. So if you want to bring your race car down, we'd like to see a whole bunch of them down there as well. Got to get the steak down there.
Yes. Also, I think Lance's Facebook page is where I first noticed this. And if they want to get on Lance's Facebook page, he's probably going to be updating it.
Yeah, he does all the time. And anytime I get some information, I'll be throwing it up on mine as well. So we hope to see you out there on Sunday, September 16th. Starting things off last weekend, for the second time this year, this is kind of interesting. Mr. Calm Cole Howland, you may remember a couple of weeks ago, past Jay Herbst in Turn 2 during the feature event, ended up winning that feature. Well, it was kind of reminiscent to what you're watching right there. Cole Howland ended up doing it again. He held off some late advance charges from Jay Herbst in this race. And Mr. Calm Cole Howland, 20 years old, is feature win number 2 in the year.
You know, he's winning out here, and it really isn't that big a surprise because about 4 years ago, when he was 15 or 16 years old, we saw him racing at the Milwaukee Mile, and he was leading the ASA Truck Series races at that time. So you could tell that this kid is an intelligent driver.
Well, you see that the camera shots here, Cole and Jay had pretty much ran away with this one. This was the battle here. Was Steve Carlson, Sean Paff, Todd Korsch, and Brent Kirshner all fighting for points, all sitting on top of the point standings. And this was quite the battle right here. Every time Sean found some clearance, the door was being slammed shut left and right by Todd Korsch. And that was an interesting race, and I would expect a lot more of that here in the next couple of weeks. Herbst did finish second, Korsch third, Paff fourth, and Steve Carlson held on for fifth. The sportsman class was quite interesting as well. Points to Randy Humfeld and Rob Mason. spun 6 laps in, which means Jake Arneson could have taken advantage of the points lead. Arneson had a late race spin himself, put Randy Humfeld back on top. But this feature night belongs to Dr. Noy's Billy Barton out of Madison.
Every once in a while he comes up with a big night, and there again he doesn't have a whole lot of experience. This is what, his second or third year out there, and he has won a handful of these features. And what's kind of nice too is that it really tightened up the points race as if it couldn't get any tighter.
Well, this thing is flip-flopped back and forth over the past 2 weeks, as you see Brian Hesselberg trying to do what he can to chase down Martin. Right behind was Randy Humfeld, who, astonishingly enough, now remember, he got spun and went to the back of the pack, and ended up finishing third in this race right here with Greg Scheck in tow. So Hesselberg did take second. Humfeld moved up to third. Scheck took fourth, and Chan Whaling, always tough when he comes out, ended up in the top 5. To the Thunder stocks, this is probably one of the most interesting points chases we have. Jason Bolster came up due to a race crash that happened, lost some of our front runners. Jason Bolster held off a couple of our point leaders to win this one here, Dakota Miller and Jordan Myers. Miller took second, and Myers finished third. And when we run down the points here in a couple of minutes, as you see Dan Rosick, a part of the Rosick sandwich right there with Jordan Myers and Tom Lethe trying to find their way through. This night went to Jason Bolster. I think that was feature win number 3 on the season. And, this was an interesting race because Myers and Lethe and Miller took them a couple of laps to get out of the midway portion of that pack.
And when you say midway portion of the pack, that's because the track requires them to start towards the middle of the group. And it always does seem like the cream rises to the top of that division, and you end up with the same 4 or 5 cars, maybe in a different order each week, towards the top, and that's what makes these points so tight.
Well, we're going to run down the points on the other side of this break coming up. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Bolden Construction Outlaws in the American Super Cup Series. Came back and did their thing on the Action Track Quarter Mile. And a guest on the program today, one of the few father-son duos at the Crosse Speedway, and got all kinds of nicknames I've given these folks over the past 4 or 5 years. I mean, they even have their own spot at the racetrack. You need a pass to get in. We'll explain that here on the other side of this break here on Seven Rivers Racing, KQEG TV.